bioorganic weapons are a plethora in Resident Evil, with many shapes and forms, some more grotesque than others, to some being some of the most terrifying monstrosities that we've ever seen. Though one particular B.O.W, more specifically a Tyrant, took the world by storm, creating some of the best and funniest memes, mods, or whatever the internet could come up with. But in all reality, if facing this Tyrant in a true-to-life situation, can you, yes you, survive Mr. X?
Good luck!
Where in this video, we continue on this series of discussing the potential survival rate against some of our favorite gaming icons, where we're pitted against them in a real life scenario, stripping away the plot armor that the regular protagonist would usually have. So if you enjoyed this type of video content, then please feel free to like and subscribe, and let's move on to our video. Which we can start off with Mr. X's biology and how this Tyrant was a true success in terms of B.O.Ws created from the Umbrella Corporation, because Mr. X's origins bear some semblances to the creation of Nemesis from Resident Evil 3, which starts from a genetically viable host, more so clones of those who are able to integrate with a T-virus infection without any kind of drawbacks like necrosis or any kind of debilitating physical factors. Instead, in this place, the T-virus would grant those who are able to use it without any consequences with some insane superhuman-like feats, from overall strength and endurance to speed and adaptive mutations if injured. So where does this put Mr. X? Well, this places this Tyrant perfectly as the winner of the genetic lottery, where now this viable host is granted with the benefits of the T-virus and is ready to take arms against those who stands in his way. Because like Nemesis, Mr. X does stand at least 7 feet tall, with the added features of increased intelligence due to the lack of drawbacks of brain necrosis that we see from those not compatible with the T-virus, allowing Mr. X to have grander than life stature that one would consider to be a Goliath of a being.
This thing will die.
Also, like Nemesis, Mr. X would sport a trenchcoat limiter, preventing this Tyrant from mutating excessively if damaged to a certain point, and would also act as a dampening to the smaller firearms if used against him.
Jesus Christ!
Though unlike Nemesis, Mr. X does not acquire the any alpha parasite, which would grant Nemesis greater intelligence and much more variety in attacks. This, however, would not deem this Tyrant ineffective in terms of hunting down his target, because like the other successfully created Tyrants from the Umbrella Corporation, Mr. X would have enough intelligence to locate and hunt for his prey, being able to follow commands without any kind of hesitation, regardless of how dangerous the surrounding area for this monster would be. On top of all this, if for some reason he does receive enough damage during his mission, the next stop for Mr. X would be to mutate into a Super Tyrant.
Sucker.
A biological weapon at its peak, where it's able to adapt from its damages to his body and would grow a claw or claws depending on how extensive the injuries are. So now with that covered, where does this place us, the average human being stripped from any kind of plot armor, against this biological Goliath? Because we can start with the physical aspect when it comes to going toe to toe with this Tyrant, which honestly we couldn't hold a candle if we decided to fight Mr. X with our bare hands, because doing so would result in catastrophic injuries, albeit barring some fatal blows. Because in terms of physical strength, we know that Mr. X is beyond measure, where he's able to lift a portion of a crashed helicopter with one arm, with the average helicopter weighing between 2,000 to 2,500 pounds, though in this case, even half of that would be an incredible feat to lift up with one arm. So to put in context, if Mr. X was able to lift a crashed helicopter with ease, then taking a punch from this Tyrant would most likely break some bones or rupture some organs if hit in the proper place.
Good luck!
Also, if trying to anticipate the attacks and possibly counter it in some form, one would risk his life, even if you were trying to parry the haymaker, because that would mean the destruction of one's arm.
Good luck!
Which now brings us to our next option, using a larger firearm against Mr. X, because at this point, we can safely assume that using some type of blunt object to attack this Tyrant would be ineffective, and would probably mean certain death. So using a weapon with a similar caliber to a shotgun would prove to damage Mr. X in some capacity. With some instances, if used in the upper head region, this would be enough to incapacitate this Tyrant to a good degree, allowing us to flee from the spot or give us enough time to hide from this monster. Because unlike Nemesis, as far as we know, Mr. X does not sport the visual optics that we saw from Nemesis, where he's able to locate and pinpoint objects around his area, allowing those being hunted by Mr. X to at least gain some distance away from this Tyrant, though only to a certain extent. Due to some examples from Resident Evil 2 or RE2 Remake, we know that Mr. X would continue to hunt down his target regardless of how far it is. Also, it's been proven that Mr. X does have a keen sense of hearing, being able to locate someone using this factor alone, so being stealthy in our movements would be a viable option when dealing with this Tyrant in real life. But like any true life scenario, if one is not able to locate a strong enough firearm to deal with this Tyrant, we can resort to using vehicles as a weapon of choice, and has proven to be effective in some instances.
This is getting old. Saving your ass, that's twice.
I didn't realize you were keeping score.
Look, this isn't a game.
You're gonna kill me.
Nothing dies down here.
Though this does not mean we kill the Tyrant, it only helps us prolong the battle against it and will give us a small window of opportunity to escape, which we hope that we do so, because as mentioned earlier, if Mr. X does receive enough damage, he will be released from his trenchcoat limiter and mutate into a super Tyrant form, which at this point would usually mean certain death, because this Tyrant in this form would be granted much more speed, a claw that would be fatal, and Mr. X in this mutation is much more aggressive. Compared to his more mild or absent affect that we see when he's in his trenchcoat limiter. So going toe to toe with Mr. X in this form would be foolish, and for sure would mean certain death.
Good luck!
Also, since we are stripped of plot armor when compared to some of the characters from the Resident Evil series, one would be lucky to find a rocket launcher laying around in the proximate area, because unlike Nemesis, who is able to at least take a direct blow from a weapon of this caliber and is able to function normally shortly after, while Mr. X on the other hand does not have the same durability as Nemesis, and if hit with a weapon like a rocket launcher, then that would mean certain death for Mr. X.
You lose, big guy.
So where does this leave us? The average person. Well, if lucky enough, we can pick up a stronger tier weapon and be used effectively against Mr. X. And if that's not an option, then fleeing or hiding is actually a viable choice this time around, though not effective in the long run, but enough to set up Mr. X with another debilitating attack, maybe trying to run him over with a larger vehicle. So overall, Mr.X in hand-to-hand combat would be fatal, but using a larger firearm that statistically is available to the average person in the United States, then we would have a higher probability of survival. Though do not overestimate this factor, because the last thing we need is to injure Mr.X enough that he mutates into a super tyrant, which at that point we might as well call it quits and accept our fate of certain death.
Good luck!
Anyways, what are your guys' thoughts in regards to this video topic and the overall probability of survival against this tyrant? And can you survive Mr. X if pitted against him in a real life scenario? Anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video, and this is episode 2 of this series of Can You Survive Against Some of Your Favorite Gaming Characters. So please feel free in the comment section down below to let me know which character we should cover next. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is Hey DeVuH, and I'll see you guys in the next video.